honestly, she wrapped her headdress around her face. She wept into her headdress. And we didn't share the same language, but we shared the same space. And I was able to put my arm on her arm, and I was able to be there with her in the pain of that and to bring her story home.
This is Down to Earth Conversations, where we hear from ordinary people who are helping to bring a bit of heaven down to earth. Kia ora! Welcome to another episode of Down to Earth Conversations. I'm Andy Dixon, and thanks for joining me for another fantastic kōrero. Episode 40. We're up to episode 40. It seems like not that long ago this podcast was just an idea bubbling away in the back of my mind, and now we are 40 episodes in. So thank you for being part of that journey with me. If you like what you hear on the podcast, make sure you head over to Facebook or Instagram, find us at downtoearth.conversations to stay in the loop of what's going on with the podcast, see some stuff that former guests are up to, and let's be honest, read a few of my opinions of life that you may or may not care about. One thing you might have seen already, if you follow me on social media, is that during this last week, the podcast hit 4,000 downloads. Now, I'm not all about numbers. I've always said if this podcast encouraged just one person, then it was worth it. And if that one person was me, it was still worth it. But it does show that you all are listening and you're continuing to listen. And for that, I am extremely grateful. And I hope that you are getting as much from these conversations as I am. Speaking of which, in today's episode, I was privileged to sit and chat with New Zealand media personality Petra Bagust. I used to watch Petra on TV as a teenager in the mid-90s, and she's done a ton of things on radio and television since then. And while doing that, she's always managed to find ways to make meaningful contributions to society alongside her media roles, to bring awareness or aid in raising funds, to champion things dear to her heart. And more recently, Petra has found herself working alongside episode 4 guest, the Reverend Frank Ritchie, as a media chaplain, providing support to the media of Aotearoa. And let's not forget, she's a wife and a mum and all that goes with that. We talk about her media career, the different twists and turns that it's taken, how she's used the platform that she was given for good, some of the experiences that she's had while supporting charities and causes, her move into media chaplaincy, her journey learning te reo Māori and what a difference that's made in her life, and she gives us a sneak peek into her own upcoming podcast. This is episode 40 of Down to Earth Conversations. Here's Petra Bagust. Kia ora, Petra. Welcome to the podcast.
Tēnā koe, Andy. It's lovely to be here.
Let's start with Nohia koe. Who are you? Where are you from?
Ko Petra Bagust tōku ingoa. I know I'm supposed to finish with that. I was born in Whanganui Tara in Wellington and spent my life growing up around different cities in New Zealand, and even had a stint overseas in England with my whānau as an early teenager. And then, ended up back in Tamaki Makaurau. And this is where I've had my own family, gotten married and worked for the last couple of decades.
Nice. And for those who are in New Zealand, a lot of us will recognise you through a lot of work you've done in the media. But for those who are listening from overseas, do you want to just describe briefly, what it is that you've done in the media? I know there's lots of different roles, but kind of how did you get into that and what does that look like for you?
When I was at Canterbury University doing a Bachelor of Fine Arts, it also goes by another name, a BFA, a Bachelor of All, I swapped waitressing part-time for telly part-time and worked on a regional music TV station called IceTV. It was awesome. It would drive up a hill and broadcast out of a monastery 5 nights a week. Yeah, very cool. And then through a series of incredible incidences, ended up on a youth show called IceTV and spent the next 5 years learning the craft of making telly with the best bunch of humans ever, and added to that national and international travel shows and game shows and house renovation shows. And so, sort of did this fantastic IceTV project for 5 years and did all sorts of other TV projects in the mix. And, got to present New Zealand Television Awards and Christmas in the Park and all sorts of other super fun broadcasts. and also got married and had 3 children at the same time, and then ended up on TVNZ's Breakfast, which unfortunately for me did my head in, wasn't suited to the hours or the system, and so left kind of full-time broadcasting, back in the early 2013.
So it wasn't something you grew up going, hey, this is what I really want to do?
Humorously enough, I think I grew up wanting to be Miss New Zealand. You know, they used to have pageants. I didn't really rate my chances in a bikini and heels. It wasn't that appealed. I'm not sure if it was world peace that appealed, but there's something about people that I am tremendously addicted to. I really like humans and I like communicating with humans. So, no, I hadn't thought about it, but it kind of made sense when it happened. Yeah, I felt at home in the space.
Nice. I've definitely filled up some of my teenage years with the IceTV, IceTV thing, and I'm Hastings High School old boy, so I was always a Nathan Rarity fan, as he's an old boy as well. But yeah, just really enjoyed that, and it's been great to see where you've gone since then.
Kia ora.
What's been your sort of favourite part of, and I guess there's a whole lot of parts of the media thing that, like you say, aren't really you, like you discovered with Breakfast. What's been your kind of favourite part of being involved in media stuff?
Oh, I am just putting it out there. I am useless at favourites because I happen to be addicted to enthusiasm. Like, enthusiasm is my drug of choice.
Cool.
And I kind of get slightly offended on behalf of Pollyanna when people say, I don't want to be all Pollyanna about it. And I'm like, what is wrong? A little bit of enthusiasm, people. Nice. So basically enthusiasm and energy is what I will usually bring to a room. What I've loved in broadcasting is the amazing adventures I've been on. Like, we got to film for maybe 3 or 4 years a national travel show. I got to try out almost every adventure tourism place, person, thing you could do in this country, and what a joy. Like, abseil down the Clyde Dam. For IceTV, I got to climb the ice tower and kiss the blinking light at the top. We got to ride on a jet boat on sewage ponds. We got to wakeboard on the Honganui River. I got to mountain bike on snow. I got to bungee jump out of, just the amount of experiences and the number of people I met. That was a true highlight. Helping people and telling good stories definitely also floats my boat. So even the silly thing of, we did a show called Hot Property, and was before auctioning your house was a hot thing, and we were kind of like, the show that doesn't sell people's houses. But we would kind of come alongside people who couldn't sell their houses, and we literally did their houses up and got them on the market. So that was kind of cool. Yeah, I just like I don't like meeting people, finding out what makes them tick. That's all a good time for me.
Nice. You say that the breakfast thing wasn't really your bag. I guess one thing that stands out to me from your time there is the responsibility you had of presenting after Christchurch earthquake.
Yeah.
What are your memories of that, and the, like, how do you do that? How do you be the face to a nation during such a crisis like that?
That was a true highlight and privilege, and I tell you, I felt like everything had come right during that season. I remember our first. I remember, I think, waking up from an afternoon nap, and they were trying to get hold of Corin Dan and myself, who were fronting at the time, and they got hold of Corin first, and so they sent him to Christchurch. And so I was the person who was in studio, and we had no new footage. We just had TVNZ's sort of leftover footage from the day before. So it was like reporting in a vacuum, and TV3 did this phenomenal job, and they had all this new footage. But as it unfolded, I came home to the fact that we were actually being useful. We were disseminating information. We were passing on useful, helpful, strategic information. We were calming fears, and we were connecting people, and we were being kind of a public service announcer, and we were telling the story for all of us. So there was this sense of the team of 5 million that, happens to come along during a global pandemic, but there was the sense of us being together. And I really felt like Corin and I had come home at that point, and all the talk, the chatter about the previous hosts would die down because we were being caned on Facebook and attacked on all sorts of social media. But actually, funnily enough, that noise sort of all came back afterwards. It was a surprise to me. But what was a much better surprise for me was the resonant goodness of being useful actually in the role. Yeah, it was amazing. Such a privilege.
Yeah. I mean, for me, it just really stuck out when I thought of you and your career, that being a moment that was just so massive and could have been done so badly.
Yeah, there was such a, like, they were like, oh, Petra looks tiny on the couch by herself. So Peter Williams, the newsreader, came and sat on the couch with me. But for me, there was this sitting and empathizing with. It's like allowing yourself to have the information and be credible or authoritative without being authoritarian or overbearing, and then to be vulnerable and with, or what I would now call bearing with in pain, but without being needing to be supported yourself. You need not to have to kind of engender in your audience, oh, she's not going to be okay. So I did consciously go into that going, I want to be able to empathize, to bear with, and also to be strong enough to make it look like nobody has to look out for me. I'm okay.
Yeah. Oh, no, that's awesome. You mentioned just back a little bit about getting slammed by people on social media, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Is that something that has been hard to deal with, or are you the sort of person that can just ignore that and brush it off, or what's that been like for you?
It is somewhere in the middle if that's your continuum. I remember going onto a website and reading something like 52 or 74 or something negative comments about me, and your palms get sweaty and your heart rate goes up and your cheeks flush. You kind of, there is a physiological response to engaging with people's hatred or disgust or dislike of you. It's like, oh, whoa. And I remember the publicist at the time, Andy, said, what you're not hearing are all the hundreds and thousands of people who are loving what you're doing. So you're just hearing one small vocal side of the story. I know that there were people who started accounts to hate on me. One person, I won't say their name, but when I went into their accounts and looked at their lives, I was like, oh, why am I engaging with this in a way that that this person actually has been given permission to speak into my life. They, not to degrade them at all because I don't need to, but they had their own real life struggles. They had their own life that they were living, and maybe their pain was enough to be able to push some of it out on some faceless kind of, on some person who's not going to bite back. But it was something that was learning and growing. I'd always said, it's not important what everybody thinks about you. You can't please all the people all the time. But I did a pretty good job of trying to make everybody like me. And I came home to the reality, you cannot, and it's okay. So I definitely landed on that. I do wish, looking back, that I had been supported to respond more proactively. I wish I'd done a Jesse Mulligan and replied to he had something like 400 tweets hate him when he went on TVNZ for the first time.
Yeah.
And I wish I'd front-footed it, So that's my only kind of look back and go, wish I'd been braver.
It's interesting, though, because, I mean, there's just thousands of us who have jobs where, we don't get people looking at us like it's a fishbowl and having their personal opinions about how good we are at our job or not. It's quite a unique kind of role to be in. I guess politicians and media are things that everybody thinks they know how to do and that they could do it better. Yeah.
Well, you're under a magnifying glass. People can dislike you just because they don't like your personality, or they can think you're doing a bad job. They can dislike you professionally, or they can dislike the content of what you're delivering. So they can dislike your interview with a political person because they don't like that political party. So there's just so many different ways of approaching being disliked or being critiqued or being judged. It definitely did ask of me, how will I spend my time and energy? Like, whose voice will I give access? What boundaries will I have? And what do the people and powers that I believe are really important. What do they have to say about me?
Yeah. Is it those kind of experiences that have led towards your being involved with media chaplaincy?
Definitely. Yeah, definitely think that that has sharpened my awareness of the difficulties that so many journalists and reporters and people who work in media face. Yeah, it is definitely a shoot the messenger situation that happens.
It almost feels like the chaplaincy work you do within the media needs to be done by someone who knows what it's like.
It's an interesting point. I'm reading about it at the moment. It's called peer advocacy. So it's the idea that if a military chaplain works in the military, to be ex-military makes more sense because you have a legitimacy or a credibility. The way Reverend Frank Ritchie and I talk about it is you get it. You get some of it. You don't get all of it. You're not like, I know exactly what you're feeling. But there is a level of comprehension and understanding that makes a difference. You don't have to sort of explain the ABC.
Yeah. So there's the media chaplaincy role that you do. Do you want to explain a little bit about what is that? What do you actually do? What does that look like practically? And it's obviously something you're passionate about because you're studying to get better at that as well. So just fill us in on what does that look like?
Well, I'm at the beginning of my journey probably. I was recruited to CBA to look after a group of about 300 Christians who work in media. So we figured out, or rather Julia Bloor figured out, that a lot of people who work in the media who have a faith feel really isolated. Sometimes they feel like they're the only ones. And that never is a great feeling for anybody who feels all alone or like they don't belong, which I think most humans intersect with in some sphere. And so it's grown over the years to be this kind of network, not of how can I get a new job or who can I meet to further my career, but how can I resource, support and encourage other Christians working in this space to not feel like they have to choose between their faith and their vocation, to feel like they're heard, seen and understood, to have a safe space where they can, be all those beautiful facets of them that they are. And when we were in our first lockdown in New Zealand, I realised that while Christians often have recourse to a pastor or a mate who has the same faith as them, a house group leader, a former youth group leader, someone who is a mentor or a guide or a good quality ear in their lives, that people outside of faith practice don't have much awhina, much support, much care for their spiritual selves. And whether or not their spiritual selves are developed, we are body, soul and spirit. We are all of these, not separated, but connected, intertwined, morphed. We are operating in the world as a physical, emotional, mental, spiritual being. And what would offering spiritual care or awhina or holding space with people in difficult times look like? And the way I look at it is, if you need to go to a counsellor, a psychotherapist, a psychiatrist, excellent, do it. And if you need to have a rant to your missus or your mate, do it. But there's space in between those two, which can be held, I think, quite well by something like a media chaplain, somebody who works in media. They can, we can come alongside and understand their context and then hold space, whether it's about spiritual topics or nothing to do with it, whether it's just about the daily grind or feeling flat or questions or being caught in the middle of an argument, being caught in the middle of a contract negotiation, self-worth, identity, all sorts of stuff. So I just sort of felt like this was a space where there was room for more hands at the mill. What is it? More hands at the till? Where do we put the hands?
I don't know.
More hands on deck. I felt like there could be more hands, more ears, more hands. And so I thought, oh gosh, I'm going to have to actually put my money where my mouth is. And so I started doing chaplaincy studies through the School of Theology at Otago Uni.
And so you're doing a lot of sitting down listening.
Yes. It's quite a challenge. I like it.
Is that hard not to be trying to give advice all the time?
The good news, Andy, is that I tried to give advice for the first about 30-something years of my life, and they say the definition of insanity is to keep doing the same thing, expect a different outcome, so I have figured out praise the Lord that listening is a more powerful and effective tool in life with everyone, anywhere, than talking. Now, I do think that there's room for talking, but I got that puppy covered. So
nice.
the listening's where it's at for me.
Do you find that for a lot of people, they come, they share, you listen, and that's kind of all they need? Or are they looking for you to input in some other way?
I think because I am me, there will always be an element of talking, and so I do tell stories based on my own experience, and I do, I guess, affirm what I hear them say and ask questions, curiosity questions like, oh, that's interesting. Did you notice that you said this? Or have you thought about that? Or what about this coming at it from this direction? So whether I've got the balance right, I honestly don't know yet. I do know that in my own experience of counselling and spiritual direction, I want input from the person I'm with. I want it to be a conversation. So I kind of just have my radar up for not talking too much, but I also give myself permission to partake in the conversation, because otherwise it's not a combo.
Yeah. And otherwise, I guess you could be seen to be trying to be the counsellor or the therapist.
Yeah.
Which actually, you're not offering that service.
No, we're not. No. Yeah, exactly.
You've been involved in a bunch of other things over your time as well, involved with organisations like World Vision, Tear Fund, the Parenting Place. What is it that draws you to those kind of organisations?
Well, I guess you asked me what I liked most about media, and I remember the very first year I got involved, 1995, when I was first year on national television at IceTV, and I was like, wow, I've been given a platform. Like, I mean, this just sounds so trite, but I'm somebody who kind of, while being very gregarious and able to dance without drinking a lot of alcohol, I also take things very seriously. So I'm kind of this slightly random combo that thought I need to give back. I essentially just felt like that. I thought, I've got this amazing privilege being on telly. I need to give back. And so got involved with World Vision immediately, and probably from that time on have tried to have an international and a national charity that I dedicate significant time and energy to. And that's been more and less over the years, in terms of I'm still an ambassador for Breast Cancer Cure and still, do all sorts of different little things. But at the moment, my main ones would be Tear Fund, and for years it was World Vision, and then work with people like Parenting Place as well. So it's really good.
Yeah, I won't get you to pick favourites on that, but
who's your favourite?
yeah, who's your favourite channel?
Not telling.
But what are some highlights from being involved in those kind of organisations?
Oh well, again, like highlights measured in laughter or tears. A highlight that you could measure in tears is being in Nepal with one of Tear Fund's partners, Share and Care, on the ground, because Tear Fund does a lot of work where they partner with people, locals who are doing the work already, and then they provide resource, financial and capabilities and administrative resource as well. And sitting with women who had survived being sex trafficked, and so the immense pain and the palpable pain of their journey. And I remember this one time sitting in a very small building in a village that we'd, crossed, I think, 15 rivers and taken 4 hours to get to by truck. We sat in this small room away from prying eyes, because even though she was free and even though she was back in her village, to admit to having been sexually trafficked would make her unclean or dirty or less than.
Wow.
It would degrade her in the eyes of her community. So with a translator and a nurse, one of their people to make sure, social worker, nurse who cared for her, we sat and she told us her story, and I think we were the first people she'd ever spoken aloud. her story
Wow.
to. And I mean, obviously this is a recording, but I'm holding my hands out in front of me, cupped together, and you feel like you've been given a sacred gift of taonga, and to take that, to carry that taonga, that story, that sacred pain home to New Zealand. And I spent a lot of time writing an article for the Sunday newspaper about it, and got my friends to proofread it because it's not my bag, and to tell her story and to raise money to prevent, to assist with getting women out of sexual slavery, to assist with rehabilitation. That's 100% a highlight. But it started with that one-on-one encounter, that kanohi, ki te kanohi, face-to-face encounter, where she wrapped her headdress around her face. She wept into her headdress. And we didn't share the same language, but we shared the same space. And I was able to put my arm on her arm, and I was able to be there with her in the pain of that, and to bring her story home. And New Zealanders, I know, respond to they respond with such generosity in their hearts to other people's authentic stories and cries for help. So, yeah, that's a highlight.
Yeah. It's interesting, even listening to that. I guess that challenges me whether highlight's the right word.
Yeah, that's why I was saying, like, what do you measure a highlight in?
But memorable moments, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, John Bridges and I flew in an Iroquois around Piha, raising money for a 40-hour famine one year, and World Vision, sort of when email was new. Was it new?
Yeah.
I don't know, when something was new, when online fundraising was new. World Vision sent out an email that we wrote together, that was my personal email saying, will you sponsor me? And I think we raised like $100,000 from that email. Wow. And it was just like, wow, when technology can help us do this really important work. I came home with a suitcase full of cashmere scarves and gave everybody a cashmere scarf for Christmas one year from Nepal. That was a highlight. A highlight is to be in another place and to meet another people and to be like, wow, this connects us. Here's our shared humanity. And there are many highlights. Yeah.
Cool. One thing you've been vocal on over recent times as well is your te reo journey.
Yeah.
What was it that has sparked that for you, and why be so public about it?
Well, firstly, I wish I was more public about it. I wish I was shouting it from the rooftops every day. I told the story today, and it's funny that you ask. I stood outside Parenting Place one day, and I do love to learn. Like, new things is like a happy place for me. So I stood outside Parenting Place, and my favourite prayers in the world are the really real ones. Like where you're washing the dishes at the kitchen sink and you say, God, I need a bigger audience than this, which I did once. And I had the 3 small children at home, and I'm like, I need a bigger audience. And the next day, World Vision called and said, we want to do a tour. We want to go around New Zealand. Julia Grace will sing. You'll speak. There'll be a chocolate fountain 7 layers tall. And we just had the most wonderful fun going around New Zealand talking to women. Well, I stood outside Parenting Place and I said, God, what should I do? Shall I study creative writing? Do I do theology? Shall I do te reo Māori? What should I do? Help. And I walked inside and they said, right, guys, we're going to start a haerenga. We're going to learn about kao Māori. We're going to learn te reo Māori. You can sign up to classes. And I'm like, great.
Yeah,
because I heard somebody say, do the easiest, most beautiful thing in front of you. Don't make it harder than it needs to be. Just whatever is the easiest, most beautiful thing in front of you, do that. Take some action. So I started learning te reo Māori, and it took me about 2 years to get my vowel sounds right. And I started with 1 2-hour class a week, and then I ended up doing 3 sort of almost full days a week. And I have still got a small amount of reo, and it's not conversational, although I can say, he cafe mau, would you like a coffee? And ke te pia koe, how are you? And a few phrases. But now I see the world. It's hard to explain, Andy. I see the world differently. Like it sparkles differently. This is how I describe it. I got to fall in love with my life all over again because I get to see it through a different cultural lens. Like,
Yeah.
like we're so used to our own story and our own terminology. Even as Christians, we're like, oh, yeah, Lord God. But Lord God in Te Reo Māori is kai whakaora. And for those who speak, they know ora and kia ora. Ora is wellness or wholeness. And whaka makes it an action, and kai means the person who does it. So kai whakaora is in this respect the creator of wellness and wholeness. And I'm like, oh, it's still happening. It's still active. God is in the process right now and now of creating wholeness and wellness. Now, theoretically, I know that that's true, that creation didn't happen however many millennia ago, and now it's all done and created, and here we are. But to feel it fresh, because there's new language and new poetry and new story, has been a true revelation. So I don't public speak or do anything now without using some Te Reo Māori, and I see it as separating us from the rest of the world, and I see it as such an addition, and I see the partnership between Māori and Pākehā, European New Zealanders, as fruitful. I think it can be and will be so amazing, but that journey has involved a lot of tears for me. I have cried and cried and cried. I have been on marae and cried and seen the mamai, seen the pain, and I'm up for it.
Which actually is really important, because otherwise it's just another act of colonisation, isn't it?
Yeah.
If we're just coming in as Pākehā and learning their language so that we can add it to what we've already got, and we're not engaging with the culture, we're not engaging with the history, we're just doing it to them all over again.
Yeah. I feel like the Ao Māori worldview asks questions of me. It asks me to be in the world differently. It asks me to integrate my physical self with my spiritual self more. It asks me to care for the land more. It asks me to care and consider my community more. It really does ask more of me in a way that I think adds to everything, adds to me, adds to my community, adds to the world at large. Yeah, it's and I feel so grateful to have had Māori friends, with me on that journey, and they have really put the wettle. They've put challenges out there and gone, no, you can't say that, or no, we don't say it like that, or you can't say that because you're not ready yet. And I'm like, I agree, I'm not ready.
Yeah.
So yeah. I love that.
Yeah, I did a couple of years of te reo study, and I'd love to do more. Unfortunately, we had young kids, and I needed to do lots of weekends away, and I was in a pastoring role, needing to be at church on a Sunday, so it didn't work. But I kind of, again, like you, I came out of 2 years of study feeling like I wasn't even up to kindergarten, speak yet.
Yeah.
But having had that window into a culture, because for me that was actually the most beneficial, was like you say, learning to see the world in a different way. And as someone who's a Bible scholar, one of the biggest things for me was realizing that actually the Bible was written by Indigenous people who were being oppressed by colonizers.
They were.
Basically. And so once I started getting a view of Te Ao Māori, the Bible came alive to me again, in new ways, because I realized that actually it was written by people far more like Māori than like me.
Isn't it amazing?
And so that's been really a real revelation. And it is that thing of, okay, this is an important journey, but it's one we need to tread carefully. And I wanted to bring it up on this because I've had a few conversations about that over the course of the podcast. Had different people come on and share their journey, both Māori and Pākehā, because I think being based in New Zealand, it's such an important thing that if we're truly going to be a country where we accept one another, we actually need to take steps towards each other. And those of us who are in that majority kind of position, have a responsibility to do that. So it's great to see you do it and to be public about that.
Yeah, and I hear what you're saying in terms of, my daughter said the other day some phrase like, if we do what's uncomfortable, in the end we'll be more comfortable. And if we do what's comfortable now, in the end we'll be more uncomfortable. And immediately I think of both exercise and food. Like, I just want to comfort eat more of it now. I'll be uncomfortable later. Exercise, I just don't want to do it. It'll be uncomfortable, it'll hurt, but I'll be, so I'll be more comfortable later because I'll be fitter and weller and I'll live longer and better. So I think that there's a true discomfort in engaging with te ao Māori, because we do have to face that colonial heritage, our settler heritage, and also discomfort because you don't want to get it wrong, you don't want to cause more marmite, more pain, more hurt. And yet it has given me so much more than it's taken, and I truly hope that I would be able to give back in terms of the idea of the treaty in the first place was partnership. We looked at each other and we said, whoa, what you've got's amazing. And they looked at us and they went, whoa, what you've got's amazing. Let's collaborate. And to be able to rewrite the story, to be able to be in New Zealand right now in the transformation of what's going on, the renaissance of the language, the rewriting of the history books, and to see New Zealand come home to its true self is something, I want to contribute to. And I think that the church has a place and is currently not benefiting or making the most of the opportunity of being where God is. God is in this, God is the God of redemption, and God is in the process of redeeming all things, creation, people, community, culture, to himself, to herself, to the God self. And so this idea that we could partner with God in the redemptive activity is very exciting. And then I come across theses like Alistair Rees, who says that when we have an existential crisis of identity, that as Europeans, when we go, well, who am I, and who are my ancestors, and where do I come from, which is my mountain, and it's really confronting as a Kiwi to do this. I'm not carrying the language trauma of having had my language taken from me. My questions are, whoa, do I belong? How do I belong? Where do I belong? And when we look at the treaty, it is an invitation to belong. It's a place to stand as a people group in partnership with. And so the thing that a lot of people have looked at in the past as being this thorn in the side, this thorn in the claw of, is this difficult thing where we had to give all this money. There is another whole way of seeing it. It is the door that we can walk through to belong to this country and work together.
Yeah. I love that idea that you were talking about, the uncomfortable thing. And I remember Aaron Hardy came and spoke at the church I was at.
Yeah.
And I remember him, a lot of people looked shocked after he said it, but then kind of got what he was saying. And he was saying, don't label something as spiritually bad just because it feels uncomfortable to you. And that's what we've done a lot in the past, is going, I think that the words he used was something like, it doesn't feel right in my spirit. But actually that's often just language for, this is uncomfortable.
Yeah, I'm not used to this. I haven't thought of it like this.
And actually, if we just acknowledge that,
yeah,
that's a huge step forward, isn't it?
It is.
Just going, actually, this is uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Let's acknowledge that, and now we can go somewhere.
And that's actually something that came up in a chaplaincy chat that I had last week, and it was that when we do new things, when we try something new, I remember having, this will make me sound like such a white person, I had a skiing lesson, and I'm like, useless at skiing, right? I took it up as an adult. Useless at it, and the skiing instructor said, you do it like this, and he said, how does it feel? I said, it feels wrong, it feels different. He said, it's supposed to feel different because you're doing it differently. It's supposed to feel unusual, it's supposed to be, but as you keep doing it, this is a better way of doing it, and this is the way you've got to keep doing it. So now I always have in my mind, when I'm trying something new, comfort is not the sign that I'm on the right track. Actually, the fact that it feels different or crunchy or slightly difficult is a sign that I am doing something different, and therefore might end up with a different result, potentially a better and more whole result. No, I love that. And, you and I have probably done this, but when we step back from all the jargon and story and metaphor that we're used to somebody who has no Christian interface, being slain in the blood of the lamb or drinking somebody else's blood and eating their flesh sounds remarkably like cannibalism to me, or just plain cult weirdness. And
totally.
Yet we are used to our symbolism and our metaphor. So if we can hold the tension of I don't understand and I don't feel comfortable, but what could this mean? Or Holy Spirit, what would you say to me about this? If I can hold the tension a little longer, hold the pain, the fear, the doubt, I think there's goodness on the other side of a lot of that questioning.
Talking of newness and new things, you've got a podcast coming out soon.
Oh, yeah.
Do you want to tell us about that? That's a step in a different direction,
Yeah.
or a similar direction but different.
Yeah, I guess being a communicator from way back, there are always stories that pique my interest, and there are journeys that happen. And choosing about maybe 4 years ago now to stop dyeing my hair because I had lots of silver showing through, and to go grey was a big step for me. It symbolised, because you remember how I take things really seriously, it symbolised the fact that I might never be on telly again. I'm like, if I choose to go silver, go grey, that's me saying I am hopping off this train of looking forever, 20, 30, early 40s. And I didn't like my cycle of liking myself for the first 2 weeks after I dyed my hair and then hating myself for the next 2 weeks. So I just thought, you know what, emancipation for me, freedom for me looks like having my natural hair colour. I am not putting that on anyone else. It's just where I was at. And then I was like, oh, there's all these things that happen as we mature as women. You can speak for the men amongst us, but as women, and I think as Europeans even, when we've got a certain maybe financial stability, or we've got a certain, I tick this box, perhaps it's children, perhaps it's a career box, perhaps it's a relationship box, perhaps it's a financial box, what now? And so that podcast is called Grey Areas, and its byline is growing up and going grey in Aotearoa, New Zealand, because I love our stories. And I thought it would be worth talking to a bunch of beautiful humans and seeing what Richard Ball would call the second half of life might bring. So we've started recording, and we've been stymied by lockdown.
Yeah.
The good ship lockdown has actually, we were about to record with a sensational New Zealander, but put her off on the day after, the Wednesday that we went into this last lockdown. But I'm keen to hear from women and to what is on the other side of being really skinny, or trying to meet social expectations of how you look, or how you behave, or how you dress, or how you work, or how you parent, and looking at that next season of life, which I suspect will be just a little bit magnificent.
I loved it when I read about the concept, because it's one of those, I guess, areas that I don't know if it's taboo as much as it's just not talked about.
Yeah.
It's just, I don't know, people assume that everybody knows or something, but I don't know any other podcasts that are asking those questions. I know plenty others that are doing the sort of thing I'm doing.
I'm sure they're out there, but I'm keen as custard to get it going. Yeah, we're trying to sign off a deal with a platform at the moment, which would make it useful because it could get into the ears of more people. But I am really interested in having some empowering conversations for and with women. And if you think again back to the Ao Māori, I reckon my generation and above, we should be jumping on board that boat and giving it as much love as we can, because look at how they treat their kaumatua, their elders. They are revered for the wisdom and knowledge that they bring, not for their youth and their external beauty, for which we are highly, mostly not responsible for. You get a certain genetic heritage, and I'm like, wow, I'm learning to look at that and say, where will I see value, and where will I see purpose, and where will I see goodness, and how will I embrace that rather than measure it, rather than compare it. And the Indigenous world does offer a lot more hope than the current European worldview of you're old, you're not contributing economically, you're past it, see you later.
Let's put you out to pasture.
Yeah. You can go travel the world. I'm like, really? That's it?
Yeah.
That's it? We travel the world, we work really hard, we travel the world? No thanks.
Yeah. Oh, it's great. I've interviewed my parents on the podcast, and what I've noticed with them is as they've hit retirement, they've actually almost got more busy because they've found a new lease of life, and they're more involved in helping people and loving people, and because they have more opportunities to do that. So, yeah, it's definitely one of those things that, like you say, Western culture tells us the older you get, the less important you are. But we need to change that.
I think so too, and I think as Christian men and women, and as Christian women specifically, we need to ask questions like, who are we waiting for to give us permission to take up space in the world, to engage in really important, meaningful mahi, work that we believe in, work that we're interested in. Look, it doesn't all have to be charity work. I think that volunteering in New Zealand is phenomenal, and I know it helps keep us going. It can be beautiful work. It can be fun work. It can be restful work. It can be whatever it is that adds to the hauora, the wellness, the life. And something I noticed specifically in lockdown is, where's the dancing? We just need to dance in our living rooms and sing in our kitchens, and we need that creative, joyful shenanigans. We need to keep our shenanigans alive while also engaging in stuff that's meaningful for us.
Yeah, awesome. Oh, thanks so much for giving time today. Really appreciate what you have to offer. And just love your heart for people, your heart for goodness, and I guess that responsibility thing you were talking about of going, actually, what can I do with what I have where I am?
That's exactly how Andy, I can't believe you've even come across that place. Like, will I bring what I have to offer to the table? Will I bring it? Will I offer what I have in my hands, however small, however shy, however big, however crazy, however sane? Will I bring it and offer it? Yeah.
And I love that because you've been on national television and you've done that, but we don't have to be on national television to do that. That's whoever we are, wherever we are. What are we going to do with what we have where we are? So
I'm almost jealous of the people who've just been working diligently, who've just set their hands to the task, and then they look back on a lifetime of work and go, wow, look at the significance of that. Whereas, I just think everybody bring what you have to that. It's more than good enough. It's beautiful and perfect.
Awesome. Oh, thank you for what you're doing to help to bring a bit of heaven down to earth.
Kia ora.
Hello, hello heaven. Will I hear you whisper to come near?
We covered a lot of ground in this episode. Hopefully you took as much from this kōrero as I did. And tying it all together for me is that Petra has a belief that wherever she is and whatever she is doing, she can make a difference. She can be a force for good in the world, sometimes in huge ways, raising thousands of dollars for charity, sometimes in small ways, sitting and listening to whatever a journalist feels like they need to chat through. And the same goes for you and for me. I come back to that same question for all of us. What can I do where I am with what I have? What can you do where you are with what you have? Since we recorded this, Petra has announced that her podcast, Grey Areas, has been picked up by MediaWorks, which is just fantastic. And it's set for release in March 2022. So make sure you check that out. And if it sounds a bit like you, then follow the link in the show notes to find out more, sign up to their newsletter and hear when it's going to be released. As is my custom, Petra, here is a blessing for you. May your enthusiasm for life continue to burst forth in creative ways, impacting and encouraging all those you encounter. May the same desire you had as your career began, a desire to use what you'd been given for good, may that same desire drive you in every endeavour and opportunity that presents itself, no matter how big or small. And may you be encouraged as you see lives impacted by who you are and what you do. May the friendships you have made along the way continue to flourish, bringing you joy and life and support as you continue to do all that you do. May Grey Areas be yet another force for good in this world, bringing joy, tears of release, and freedom to people's lives. May every grey strand of your hair be a reminder to you of a life thus far well lived, and the wisdom you have gained from all you have experienced. And may you know the gift that you are to those coming after you. And lastly, may you continue to know that your worth far exceeds what you do, that you are loved by your friends, your family, and by God. Thanks to Strawn for the music and to Rangi for the karakia. Join me next time when I talk to New York Times best-selling author Jeff Chu, all the way from Michigan. Jeff is a journalist, author, editor, teacher, and is co-curator of the Evolving Faith Conference over in the States. In his book, Does Jesus Really Love Me?, he interviews a wide range of Christians regarding their beliefs about homosexuality, from openly gay priests to members of the Westboro Baptist Church. It's an amazing conversation with a top-class human being. Until then, me inoi tātou.
E tō mātou matua I te rangi, kia tapu tō ingoa, kia tau mai tō rangatiratanga, kia mea te tau e pai ai ki runga ki te whenua, kia rite anō ki tō te rangi. Humai kia mātou ai nei, he taro mā mātou mō tēnei rā. Muro o mātou hara, me mātou hoki e muru nei I o te hunga, e hara ana kia mātou. Aua hoki mātou e kawea, kia whakawaia. Engari whakaorangi a mātou I te kino